We have three main items that I'm going to cover in the D&D Weekly News this week. We're going to start with a little item I titled Neverwinter Goes to Hell. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Neverwinter, the MMO, of course, by Arc Gaming and Arc Games and Perfect World Entertainment. This has been a long-running MMO produced by those two studios as well as Cryptic in development in a partnership with Wizards of the Coast. Of course, it's available on PC and console. They just announced that the brand new Descent Into Avernus update has gone live for PC and will be available on console on July 28th. So they've every now and then they will publish these pretty large arcing content updates to Neverwinter that always kind of reflect what's happening in the TTRPG game. Now we know Descent of Avernus is a couple of iterations behind, but still one of the most popular story arcs released by Wizards of the Coast for D&D 5e. And now that's coming to the console and PC version of Neverwinter, again, already released for PC, coming for console on July 28th. It's a collaboration, like I said, between Wizards of the Coast, Arc Games, Crypt Studios, and Arc/Perfect World. And they specialize in free-to-play MMOs specifically. So again, totally free-to-play. There is a cost model, as there typically is. They got to keep the lights on, of course. Perfect World has produced a number of other MMOs you might be familiar with, like Torchlight, Star Trek Online, MMO. What else? Remnant, and they're doing the upcoming Magic the Gathering Legends. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It was just announced at PAX last year, and it looks really good too. So I think this is somewhat isometric MMO based in the Magic the Gathering world called Legends. So keep an eye for that too. Neverwinter is, of course, still free to play and will remain so, but they've built a brand new player experience into the game. So if you're looking at getting involved, or if you wanted to try it but haven't, it might be a good time. So they've completely revamped the new player experience and the player onboarding process in order to keep it fresh and update the graphics. Of course, these things change over time. And like I said, Neverwinter's been around for almost a decade. We'll get into that a little bit later, but just basically past their 7th year anniversary. So happy birthday, Neverwinter. They've been steadily adding modules around the 9 Hells, kind of leading up to Descent into Avernus, and bring new people, new gamers into the massive new story and content that they've built for it. So they want to keep these things fresh, and what they do is they leverage the release cycle for Wizards around D&D 5e and bring it into the game and that type of experience too. So the last module that they just completed is the Infernal module. Like I said, they're just easing into the 9 Hells, or they've also called it the Valinus story. So this is the one that's just concluding, and now as they ease into the new arc, this is going to focus on, of course, the Archdevil Zariel, who is that character featured on the front cover of the regular retail hard source book for Descent into Avernus. You know, like the pale-skinned, black-inked, crown of fire, flying, sword-wielding Archdevil. That's Zariel. So Zariel is the big bad that features in Descent into Avernus, and she's also going to be the big bad that features in this new content story arc, of course. So it's going to include a new story, includes a new adventure zone for players to quest in and level up through, and new heroic encounters as well. They've also, in this new update, they've added the Gith as a playable race. So, familiar with Githyanki, the Dragon Riders, which is an interesting crossover that might kind of allude to what we have coming with Baldur's Gate 3 and the war between the Gith and the Illithid that we see featured in that new coming console or new coming video game title, I should say, only announced for PC and Google Stadia at the moment. They've also introduced Infernal War Machines, of course, a really great mechanical introduction that a lot of players seem to like with D&D 5e in the tabletop version. So they are bringing War Machines into Neverwinter in this new update as well. The campaign itself is fairly linear, so it's not kind of a choose your own adventure style thing, which will be different to fans of the D&D tabletop genre, of course, where it's, you can really do whatever you want. It's a little bit more linear. It does kind of branch off towards the end and give you some multiple options, but that's reasonable, I think, in a video game. It's a little bit more conducive to digital gaming experience than the typical of Neverwinter to date. So all of the Neverwinter experiences that we had are usually somewhat linear, and that's just the nature of video games, I think, right? It's a lot more difficult to create an open-ended, more sandboxy game, especially at the pace that they're rolling these things out with, particularly in a free-to-play format. So especially considering it's free-to-play, I think it's a really good value for your dollar, I guess. That might sound redundant. But there was Randy Moisens, who's the lead designer of Neverwinter, spoke to MMO Bomb in an interview when they released this, and they said they're also actually introducing a new class at some point, or at least they quote unquote do have a new class in mind. They were a little bit more tight-lipped about that, fearing to show too many details, I guess, or show their hand ahead of launch. And it's currently, like I said, it's currently available on console and PC, but Moisens said that cross-player next-gen port was not currently in focus. So they're going to continue to develop for Neverwinter, but there's no word yet whether or not they're going to port that over to next-gen consoles like PlayStation 5 and the like, or Stadia or anything like that. And cross-play is not on the roadmap at all. So some people have been asking if they'll ever be able to play with your friends on Xbox, PC, PS4 indiscriminately. Not currently in the roadmap. Of course, it takes a lot of resources, development, and testing to do that too. So that's a little piece on Neverwinter, the free-to-play MMO from Arc/Perfect World Entertainment and Cryptic Studios, of course, in partnership with Wizards of the Coast. I have played the game a little bit, actually. I started it with a number of friends of mine. I played a cleric, and it was actually pretty fun. It was very well-rounded. You can tell that it's got a lot of legs in as an MMO that has been around for a long time, has gone through a number of development iterations, and of course continues to receive really great content upgrades in the process. So that's been exciting. If you haven't checked it out yet, PC or console, whatever your flavor of choice, like I said, it is free to play. A couple of cautionary items, I'm excited about it too, but I've got to meter that with some objectivity. And it does, there is a pretty significant microtransaction environment. Some of the sticking points around that are like some of the races like Dragonborn and some of the backgrounds and things like that are paid upgrades or paid packs. So when you get in there, you'll have more than enough to enjoy and try out the game and see if you like it. But there is a subscription-based tier, and then there are also paid packs to get access to other character options, which is a little bit kind of meh, because when you get in there, you want to play, especially if you come from Dungeons and Dragons, a tabletop game, you do naturally want access to all the great things that you've become used to as a player of the tabletop game. But that's where they kind of hit you and say like, okay, time to pony up. But I'll be honest, when I get into a free-to-play game like this, me personally, if I like it enough, then I will at least justify paying what I would have paid for a digital game at the F2P or the marketplace. So I think I threw like $50 at Neverwinter the time that I did, and I really did enjoy it. You don't have to do that, though. You can definitely get in there and enjoy a few hours and try it out and see if it works for you. But it is, like I said, free to play on PC and console. So, I encourage you to check it out. I have a couple of fun highlights that I pulled about Neverwinter, actually. I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you know Carnage, the streamer here on Twitch, great variety streamer, awesome guy, great community. Actually got his start in Neverwinter. I heard him say this a little while ago. I wasn't really sure if he was talking about Neverwinter Nights or talking about Neverwinter proper, like the MMO. But one or the other, I'm going to assume for the sake of this spread that he's talking about Neverwinter. But Carnage actually got his start there. That's where he began kind of playing and streaming, and he grew from there. As I mentioned, Neverwinter just hit its 7th birthday, so happy birthday, Neverwinter, and congratulations to the team on 7 great years of producing free-to-play excellent content in the D&D universe. And like I said, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of great nostalgia play in it, and if you like D&D and MMOs, you'll have fun for sure. It's not visually, breathtaking or cutting edge, but it runs really well. It's smooth. The content is good, and every now and then you'll see little kind of cameos that the Wizards of the Coast and the D&D crew will throw in there. D&D is very closely connected to the story and the lore as well, so it follows suit with a lot of that stuff. And we know how protective Wizards is around the D&D IP, so you can feel good about at least your D&D experience being protected in that MMO experience as well. And like I said, it's free to try, so why not, really? That's Neverwinter. Maybe we'll see you there. The next big item on the menu this week is from DnD Beyond, DnD Beyond, who have now launched their new player app for mobile devices. I don't know if you caught this news, but this week DnD Beyond announced that they are launching and have launched now the new mobile experience for their player app. if you're familiar with D&D wow, I cannot word speak today. If you're familiar with D&D Beyond and you had previously checked out the app, it's reasonable that you may have had some raised eyebrows. I certainly did. I checked into the app like a month ago or so, well, a couple of months ago, but up to last month, and it was very limited. It was very basic. I mean, it was actually kind of non-functional. I think I opened it twice and had no further use for it. It didn't even give you the options from the website, like the tools, resources, the libraries, anything to even look something up. It didn't really give you the character options that you had on the website, so it was very, very limited and kind of left me questioning why they even had this app in the first place. Finally, at long last, this week, they announced the launch of the D&D Beyond player app. I've been through it. It's much, much better. Still pretty limited, and of course, it's still a very much a work in progress. So take it with a grain of salt, but it has been long awaited, and it is the new evolution in the grand plan for D&D Beyond. I reported a couple of streams ago that they have confirmed very much that VTT glory is on the roadmap. So in all of this, D&D Beyond have been very open about their distinct intention to bring D&D Beyond into the virtual tabletop setting. So before too long, we will have a complete, comprehensive, one-stop shop new virtual tabletop that is D&D Beyond centric, good, bad, or indifferent. So it's interesting to see how they are evolving this product. Of course, they're well in league with Wizards of the Coast and D&D on this for support. Wizards, of course, has partnerships with Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, and other VTTs as well. But this is going to be their fighter brand. So rest assured that when this thing's finished, they're going to get the lion's share of the proper official D&D 5e treatment. So keep an eye out for that. And that is probably answers a lot of the questions about why there's not better integration between D&D Beyond and other virtual tabletops. So I think that writing's kind of on the wall. While it would be a great quality of life improvement for those of us who play or DM or both in those systems, I think they're playing that one a little close to the vest because eventually they are going to launch their own. So again, a quick disclaimer on the app. It is still very much a work in progress. They said a lot of areas of the character sheet are still under development. There's still a lot of options that you might not see there right out of the gate. But it does walk you through the process very easily. I went through the character creation process on both desktop and mobile. It's very smooth, very easy to navigate. My only hesitation is that, it only gives you the options from the SRD or the basic rules. So if you pick cleric, you can only pick, light cleric, I think, as your sub. The races are very limited, things like that. So of course that's their moneymaker too, right? They want you to go to Marketplace and buy those packs. So it's all interconnected. We won't open that map and suddenly have access to the entire D&D catalog of materials. Like I said, they got to keep the lights on too, right? So, but it is very easy to navigate. It reminds you of the things that you've not yet completed. So it's got a great highlight system. If you forget to pick something like proficiencies or add skills, it'll cue you to that and keep you moving well along the process of character development. Like I said, it is pretty limited unless you've already purchased into the system. So for players, it's pretty great, or for DMs that have those source book packs and can share them with their campaigns, which are also supported by the app, then you'll have a much better time with it. So, for example, if you have already bought the Legendary Bundle or any of that, then your players will reap the benefits of that too, and it'll open up the app for you tremendously. And it's a pretty good cost savings. I'm still not sure if I'm ready to make that complete jump over to digital and invest at that level. Of course, I have all my books, and I've actually converted all my books to digital too in PDF so that I can use them on stream. But it would be nice to not have to go through like an hour-long process to convert a source book into a PDF, to just have that digital version. So I'm definitely intrigued. And of course, D&D Beyond is owned and run by the former Curse, which is now Fandom. Really huge organization that has long, deep roots in internet content and content development. So I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. I feel pretty good about the financial stability and the health of the company. So if I'm close to doing anything in a digital format, it's probably going to D&D Beyond. Plus, I've gone over their roadmap in detail, and it looks really impressive. But we'll get to that in a minute. It does emulate the great resources on D&D Beyond. Like I said in the app, we've been this is the app we've been pining for and waiting for. So definitely check it out. Of course, it's free to download. You can view the resources now on the website, which is a big plus. So you can go into the menus, you can pull up all of those things that are available. You can look through your own books. You can see what's available on the marketplace. You can view your character stats, your players' stats, all that stuff is now available through the app. So they've really ported all the great desktop functionality into the app finally, because before, like I said, I don't even know why I had opened it in the first place. You can make your checks right from the character sheet. And what I love is that they have now integrated the dice rolling, the new virtual dice that they announced back in May. You might remember they had their alpha test and they launched the virtual dice roller in May, and it's really smooth and clean. And you can roll them right from your character sheet. That is really beautiful. It's going well. It's still a little bit janky. They haven't introduced all of their dice sets, but that's, a hair's breadth away from being completed. So I think that's something that we can look forward to, and I'm excited for that implementation, because now we have a digital version of the character sheet that really feels a little bit more tactile. They're just bridging the gap ever so slightly between digital and real, and I think that is the key. I think that's the way forward for virtual D&D in the future for players and DMs alike. I really do like the dice implementation. I think it does open a new microtransaction environment, sure. There's a lot of back and forth in the community on where people are and how they feel about the pricing of dice sets. I mean, the new Mystic one that came out with Mythic Odyssey of Theros. I probably just butchered that, but there was a dice set that came out with those. If you want to buy those dice alone, they're $15, and we are talking about virtual dice, right? So I think it's important that we price it accordingly. But they're taking feedback from the community as well. So if you have a position on that, do share it. All in all, I would say it's a great mobile port for the app. I think it works really well. There's level planning as well, so you can get an outlook of your character, where you want them to go, kind of map out your character's progression right there in the app as well. There's overview on equipment. There's equipment management available. Dice implementation, like I said, the roller's really good on its own, even if you just want to use it as a dice roller. You can select how many dice you want to roll, what type of poly, and just throw them. So even as a dice roller, it's a pretty good tool if you're just going to use that on the side. And it's important to remember that the entirety of D&D Beyond is still in a scaled rollout. So this is the roadmap which they've made available to the public. The launch of the new player app is just one more step in that long scaled rollout towards virtual tabletop glory, as I'm calling it. And the new and improved integrated mobile experience is going to be pivotal to that too with the player app. So let's talk about some other milestones that D&D Beyond has hit or have on the roadmap. So they've confirmed that a fully functioning virtual tabletop is the end goal. It is on the roadmap. They have Discord implementation now, and they've launched a Discord bot called Avray. This is something that kind of relates back to Discord as well. They're still fine-tuning and polishing, but it is available. So I'll be looking at that for Discord as well. It'd be fun to play with. Combat Tracker is in development currently, so that's going to be your initiative. You can see now they're starting to bring in all the ingredients, right? If you compare it to a Roll20 or a Fantasy Grounds. And they're bringing in feature variants later in the year, presumably according to the roadmap. Interactive battle maps and a virtual DM screen also on the roadmap, so that's something to look forward to. That's going to be coming for D&D Beyond. And then, of course, the pièce de résistance, or résistance, is the virtual tabletop game board. And that, I think, is going to be the final stroke, the coup de grace, if you will. It's a very French-themed stream, it seems, today. That really finalizes their entry officially into the virtual tabletop battleground. And we'll see how it plays out. I, for one, am really excited about the progression. I think the team over there is doing a lot of really great things. I was seriously skeptical about it at first when it was even announced, because Wizards has tried to go down this path before. They owned a virtual, like a digital marketplace. It just didn't really do very well. But this time around, I've mentioned this before, I think Wizards is doing a much better job of engaging the right partners who have play in those things that they want to, ingress to, rather than trying to own everything themselves and learn it from the ground up. So I think that's been a really great choice and step for them in the development of the game. And of course, virtual and digital products, which, as we know, we're experiencing it today, brings people much closer together in the community, no matter where they are in the world. And I'm looking forward to how D&D Beyond factors into that in the very near future. The playbook, or the roadmap rather, is available. You can go through D&D Beyond. You can even just Google search D&D Beyond roadmap and you'll find it as well. It's a Trello board. You can actually watch the progression. I think it's been a long time since we've seen that kind of transparency from any organization about the development of their products. Of course, they're able to do this because D&D Beyond is not owned by Wizards of the Coast. They're not even related. It's a totally separate company that has a very close lockstep relationship with the brand and the IP. So that's important to remember as well, especially when the conversation turns to things like, why do I have to buy this book from Wizards of the Coast and buy it on DnD Beyond? The analogy I use there is that's the equivalent of buying The Last of Us for PlayStation and expecting that you should also have it for Xbox, right? Two totally different companies. So keep that in mind when you are exploring all that wonderful DnD Beyond content that's available today and coming on the horizon. Next up, I'm going to close with a really this might be a little bit not controversial, but I've developed some opinions about it. So announced this week was a new show called InstaQuest. Is anyone familiar with this? You may or may not have heard of it. This is essentially a new live D&D experience that has been put together by 4 or 5 huge Instagram and Twitch influencers. Now, at face value, I was intrigued by it. It seemed pretty cool. A totally mixed reality experience. A little bit of VR, a little bit of dice rolling. Until I started to read a little bit more into it, and it began to read as a very thinly veiled attempt to capitalize on the popularization of D&D to expand their audiences. And here's why. So, of course, I want to handle this objectively, make your own opinions, but part of my delivering the news is sharing my experiences with it and how I feel about it, how these things are rolling out. So it features mainly cosplayers, first of all, but a lot of them are Twitch streamers or huge Instagram influencers. And I mean, they have followings in the 400,000s plus, right? So Alex Drastel is one of them. Zombie Unicorn, you might recognize from the Twitchverse, spends most of her time in the Just Chatting channel talking about gaming and things like that. Jobo, who I couldn't find a lot about, this is the DM for the game. Darth Lexi, and the Sushi Dragon, who's kind of built his Twitch following on VR and AR. I really want this to be cool. I think it's a neat idea, but I have to admit, in mere minutes of reading up and researching on this, my cringe meter was just going through the roof, spiking all over the place. So the first thing that I noticed is none of these influencers really have anything to do with Dungeons and Dragons. There's nothing in their, or TTRPGs in general, there's nothing in their history or any other content that even comes close to TPRG. There's literally no adherence or interest in TTRPG from their content alone at all. So there's literally nothing to it. For example, Zombie Unicorn, who's a great streamer, great personality, lots of great followership, obviously. And all these streamers these content creators are great in their own right. My biggest gripe is that they don't have anything to do with D&D or TTRPGs, and they never had. And now suddenly they're leading this kind of pioneering experience. Like I said, as I go through this, you let me know how you feel. But for me, it was a thinly veiled attempt to reach into another audience to expand their own followership. So all of the bios for the characters on the website, which really doesn't share much information at all, seem to focus on how huge their following is. So all of the bios, all they talk about is a couple of games they play and how many followers they have, who they're represented by, what brands they've worked with, and then all their social media properties, which is a little bit pitchy to me. And just seems kind of discordant with D&D community and follower base that we've seen in the past. None of them have any mention about any involvement in TTRPGs or D&D at all. And Jobo, the DM, who I was interested in learning most about, doesn't even have a bio entry on the site. He's literally not mentioned anywhere else on the site. It is the idea is that it's set in this mixed reality world where they roll dice and they get up and they actually interact with a VR sequence. Which I'm not sure is going to be play out the way they wanted pre-pandemic, of course, providing obvious challenges to doing something like that in person. And I don't know if they're doing it in person anymore. Again, the details are really light and the language on this site is extremely vague. It's basically marketing copy that shows the website is they just spin quips and tropes what did they say? Okay, so here's some quotes that I pulled from the website. Where the game master generates spontaneous quests for armor-clad players in real-time adventure. There's the whole site is kind of littered with statements like that. There's no real info about the event, the show, or the game itself. The other red flag I have is they mentioned D&D specifically a bunch of times, right? Which has obvious brand affinity and recognition and familiarity for people. But then they talk about like GM and TTRPG, and they kind of flip-flop between the language like this, which made me think like, okay, is it really D&D, or are you just kind of leveraging the affinity for D&D as a brand to hook people? And that became a little bit more clear as I continued my research. It's hailed as a VR live streaming event with custom effects and all this stuff. There's really not a lot of information on it available. There seems to be a lot of B-roll. If you watch the promo video, first of all, it looks like something that was shot a while ago. There's no real information in it. One thing that stuck out to me though is the cast members who are being showcased on the site doing this show, which launches on July 25th, by the way, so it's only a couple of weeks away. In the promo video, only 2 of the members who you see playing in the promo video are actually heralded in the cast. It also shows 3 other characters who aren't even mentioned anywhere, who aren't in the show. So what I drew from that is I believe this is something that they started a long time ago, pre-COVID. They put some legs behind it, and they had to halt it because the B-roll shows them playing side by side, and it's pre-recorded. Now, we know that that's going to be difficult to do, or I hope that's not what they're professing to do, especially in the time of this pandemic where social distancing is such a big concern. And we look at providers like Critical Role, who've gone through painstaking processes to ensure the safety of their players, their staff, to resume their programming, and are now live recording it as well in the interest of maintaining that. So I don't imagine that their approach now is to do it live, but it seemed like this is something that was produced a while ago, had to be put on hold, and now they're pot committed, so they're having to kind of get back into it, and they're trying to pull it together as best they can. With so many kind of in-person games canceled, I think it stands to reason that they'll have to consider that in however they're going to accommodate this too. Like I said, it's perfectly possible that those promos were shot and built before all this happened, and now they've had to come back into it. The concept itself is really exciting. I do like the idea. The interactivity in the promo looks really cool, and the VR, when the effects kind of interact with the players, it all seems like a super cool idea. But like I said, for me, overall, it just reads as a thinly veiled attempt to kind of leverage D&D as a platform to reach into other audiences for streamers or content providers who otherwise don't play in those spaces, right? So there's a lack of any real information. The only real information, like I said, focuses on the influencers, their huge followings and things like that. There's literally nothing else that looks or sounds like D&D. In fact, it's quite the opposite, which is why I think they're just leveraging D&D to leverage the popularity of the brand and the affinity. So here's some things that jumped out at me when I was going through the quotes that made me think that way. So some quotes that I pulled that raised an eyebrow for me. So from Alex Dressel's bio, he said, joining us as the mighty barbarian. And he's shown in full plate armor and a pristine tabard, like very not like any D&D barbarian we know. In fact, things that our barbarians can't do. But then they do say like not like any barbarian you've experienced. So they're using D&D, but then there's nothing really that ties it to a D&D experience. Darth Lexi has a loose and easy quote from Queen Galadriel in her bio. That's it. Everything else is about her following and stuff like that, and how she plays video games. And the quote that I pulled, the only quote based on the game, says, her backstory isn't the only thing that's twisted. I wouldn't upset the balance of nature with this one. What does that even mean? I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. It just seems a little put on for me. The Sushi Dragon's the only one who I feel seems connected to the project. Like I said, he's made his niche with real-time custom live effects streaming in a green screen VR environment, which seems like exactly the type of platform they would need to make something like this a reality. But his content is mainly focused on Overwatch, League of Legends, and dancing in VR for his viewers, right? Again, huge followership. I'm not discrediting any of them for the great work they've done. They're excellent. Like, they're huge personalities. They've got massive followings. They've done great work. I would never want to take that away from anyone. But I raise my eyebrow when it comes to like, now we're leveraging D&D. We've none of us have ever talked about D&D or had anything to do with D&D. But D&D is on the rise in popularity, and it's becoming huge on Twitch. So we want a piece of that pie. And that really kind of comes through in the experience that I see them delivered. Believe me, I want to be wrong about this. I really do, but I have to call it like I see it, because otherwise it's just very random. Finally, Zombie Unicorn, the fourth and final player who's listed for this. The only quote that says anything about RPGs in her bio is that she sometimes hosts some of Holy Crit's RPG shows. I went into her channel and I looked at it. And what that means is sometimes she hosts Holy Crit's channel, but she's only ever hosted the 30-second intro to their stream, like the going live soon screen for 30 seconds twice. So I don't know. That to me is, I'm like, I'm not really buying it. Honestly, I'm not buying it. And it kind of irritates me a little bit when, we all participate here in this community and we love our hobbies and we're protective of D&D and we enjoy it greatly. And I just think like there are so many opportunities to bring great D&D creators into something like this who know the game, who've put the miles in, who love it, that this is just a little bit disheartening to me and I get a little bit deflated by it. But I think the concept is really cool. I just wish they had engaged people who have really kind of put the miles in around D&D if they're going to make it D&D, or TTRPGs if they're going to make it TTRPGs. So finally, to sum all that up, my read on it is that I think it's clear and evidently a bit of a hokey play for a handful of huge streamers to tap into a new audience that and a fandom that's very supportive of D&D and very quick to jump on and rally around creators who are D&D centric. And otherwise, they seem to have no real interest in D&D or TTRPGs or the communities other than views, followers, subscriptions. And it has pure cringe written all over it. So that's a little bit strong, I know. I usually don't take a stand like that, but I'm protective of our hobby and our community too. And I always get a little defensive when I feel like it's being taken advantage of. I want to be wrong. I don't want to say that's the way it is. I will probably check it out live because I need to see how it works and if it works, or if it's going to go totally off the rails, or what implications it might have for streaming entertainment in the future. The flip side of that is I could be totally wrong. I will happily eat my words if this thing is freaking amazing. If this is like, everybody wants to be the giant killer, right? The next Critical Role or the next this or the next that. If it is something truly new and brings a new, unique, engaging experience to viewers, creators, DMs, and players alike who enjoy Dungeons & Dragons and TTRPG content, then I will sit here on stream and I will say, you know what, gang? I made a judgment on this that was research-based, but I'm very happy to say that I was completely wrong. That's actually the outcome that I would love. But we'll see. We'll see. It won't have staying power if it's not honest and true, because we are probably the most critical of our hobby, and rightfully so. Otherwise, July 25th, I guess we'll see how InstaQuest does on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever else their followers have their several million followers looking for them. TBD.